At 1 in the morning, my granddaughter collapsed at my doorstep. Her eyes were bruised and her lips were split. Sobbing, she confessed, "My boyfriend hit me because he wanted total control over me and my money." I held her in silence, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. I helped her into the house, and without a word, I pulled out my old nursing kit from the closet, the one I had kept since my days in the emergency room, ready to document every mark of his cruelty. Then I dialed my old colleague's number, the one who still worked at the precinct as a liaison for abuse cases. "Start the plan now," I whispered into the phone, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I'm glad you're here, folks. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has reached. Maybe you're curled up in bed in New York, or sipping coffee in London, or even on a bus in Tokyo. Share your spot, and let's connect through this tale of justice." I had just turned off the old table lamp in the living room, its soft glow fading as I settled into my favorite armchair, the one with the worn floral pattern that had seen better days. My knitting needles lay abandoned on the side table, a half-finished scarf for the winter ahead dangling like unfinished business. Being a retired nurse in this sleepy suburb of Willow Creek wasn't always filled with high drama. Most days were quiet, filled with garden tending or volunteer shifts at the community clinic. But that particular day had been longer than usual. I'd spent hours at the clinic, bandaging scrapes from kids' playground mishaps and checking blood pressures for the elderly neighbors who trusted my steady hands more than the young doctors. My back ached from bending over exam tables, and my feet throbbed in my sensible shoes. All I craved was a deep, uninterrupted sleep, the kind where dreams wash away the day's weariness. Outside, the night was alive in its own subtle way. The wind whispered through the oak trees lining the street, rustling leaves like secrets being shared. And in the distance, the faint hum of traffic from the highway reminded me that the world never truly stopped. It was already 1 in the morning, but our neighborhood, tucked away from the city's bustle, had finally surrendered to silence, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl perched in Mrs. Thompson's backyard pine. I thought about the young families nearby, their lights long dimmed, kids dreaming of adventures, and I smiled faintly, closing my eyes to let the peace sink in. Suddenly, a hurried knocking shattered the quiet, so loud and desperate it made me bolt upright, my heart racing like it did back in my ER days during a code blue. Adrenaline surged through my veins, sharpening my senses. Years of handling crises had honed my instincts to a fine edge. "Who on earth could that be at this ungodly hour?" I muttered, rising quickly and grabbing the heavy brass flashlight from the hall table, its weight reassuring in my grip, just in case it was trouble knocking. "Who is it?" I called out, my voice firm, laced not with fear but with the wariness of someone who's seen too much of the world's darker side. There was no immediate answer, just a few more knocks, weaker now, almost pleading, followed by a choked, trembling voice that pierced straight through me. "Grandma, open up, please. It's me." I nearly froze solid. That voice? It was Emily, my precious granddaughter, the light of my life since her parents' tragic car accident left her in my care when she was just 5. My hands fumbled with the locks, unlocking the door in a frenzy, my pulse thundering in my ears. As soon as the door swung open, Emily collapsed forward into my arms, her body trembling like a wounded bird, limp and exhausted, as if she'd run a marathon to escape hell itself. I wrapped her in a tight embrace, supporting her full weight, feeling the fragility of her frame, every ounce of energy drained from her. "Emily, oh my sweet girl, what happened to you?" I asked, my voice breaking despite my efforts to stay composed, the words catching in my throat like thorns. The warm yellow light from the porch bulb spilled over her face, illuminating a nightmare I never wanted to see. Her lower lip was split open, crusted with dried blood that flaked off as she gasped for air, and her left eye was a swollen mess of purple and black, barely able to open, the skin around it puffy and tender. She was clutching her abdomen with both hands, fingers digging in as if to hold herself together, wincing with every shallow breath. "Alex, my boyfriend, he hit me because I found out about his lies, his control over my accounts," she whispered, her voice barely audible, choked with pain and shame, before she broke into deep, heartbreaking sobs that shook her entire body, echoing in the still night. I felt a volcanic rage erupt inside me, hot and fierce, but at the same time my heart splintered. Emily, the girl I'd raised with stories of strength and independence, the one who'd graduated top of her class and dreamed of becoming an artist, was shattered in front of me, a victim of the man I had once thought was charming. I helped her inside the house, guiding her step by careful step to the soft couch in the living room, where she sank down with a whimper. I hurried to the kitchen, grabbing a clean damp cloth from the drawer and my well-stocked first aid kit from under the sink. The habits of a nurse die hard. "Stay still, honey. Let Grandma take a look," I said, my tone soothing, though inside I was a whirlwind of fury and sorrow, my hands steady from decades of practice, but my mind racing. I gently dabbed at the blood on her lip, watching as the cloth came away stained red, the wound raw and deep, not just a surface cut, but a symbol of deeper betrayal that sliced into my own soul. Emily kept her hands pressed to her stomach, trembling uncontrollably, her knuckles white. With careful tenderness, I pried them away and lifted the hem of her blouse. Dear God, I nearly dropped the cloth in shock. A massive bruise, sprawling across her abdomen in ugly shades of black, purple and yellow, like the imprint of vicious repeated blows, staring back at me. It looked like it had been building for days, perhaps weeks, the kind of injury that spoke of ongoing torment. I felt like the air had been punched out of me, as if I had absorbed those hits myself, my breath coming in short gasps. "Emily, tell me the truth. Who did this to you? It was Alex, wasn't it?" I asked, my voice quivering with a mix of rage and unbearable pain, my eyes searching hers for confirmation. She didn't speak at first, just let the tears flow freely, her sobs the only sound breaking the heavy silence of the house, each one a dagger to my chest. Without wasting another moment, I snatched up the phone from the end table and dialed the number I knew by heart, the emergency clinic where I had worked for 30 years, now run by my old protege, Dr. Elena Harlan.
"Elena, it's Margaret. Get a room ready. I'm bringing my granddaughter in right now. It's bad," I said, my words clipped and urgent, leaving no room for questions. My reliable old sedan was parked in the driveway, but with Emily's state, I opted for caution and called a taxi via the app on my phone, not wanting to risk driving while so shaken. While we waited, I sat beside her on the couch, covering her with my soft knitted blanket to ward off the chill that seemed to seep from her very bones. Her cell phone, discarded on the coffee table, lit up repeatedly, vibrating with insistence. From the corner of my eye, I saw 8 missed calls from Alex, and snippets of messages popping up on the lock screen. "Keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you. You'll lose everything." A surge of white-hot anger flooded me, and I reached out to grab the phone, intent on scrolling through to uncover more of his threats, to build my case even then. But Emily, despite her weakness, lunged forward with surprising speed and snatched it back, her eyes wide with raw panic. "Grandma, please don't look. It's nothing. Just leave it," she pleaded, her voice laced with terror, as if merely touching the device could summon the devil himself. I didn't press her further, not wanting to add to her distress. Instead, I squeezed her hand gently, feeling the cold clamminess of her palm against mine. "I'm right here, sweetheart. Nothing bad is going to happen to you now, not while I'm breathing." But inwardly, I seethed, knowing this had escalated far beyond a simple fight. This was systematic abuse, and I wouldn't let it stand. When the taxi pulled up, its headlights cutting through the darkness like beacons, I helped Emily to her feet, wrapping an arm around her waist to support her as she limped to the door, grabbing my purse and the first aid kit in the other hand. The short ride to the clinic felt eternal. Emily hunched over, her head resting on my shoulder, murmuring apologies over and over. "Forgive me, Grandma. I didn't want to drag you into this at this hour, but I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get away from him." Every syllable she uttered was like a fresh wound to my heart. I was her grandmother, her guardian, the one who'd promised to shield her from the world's cruelties after her parents were gone. And yet here she was, seeking refuge in the dead of night from a man I'd once invited to Sunday dinners, thinking he was good for her. The taxi halted in front of the clinic, where the stark white neon sign reading "Emergency" flickered like a cold promise. I paid the driver quickly and helped Emily out, her legs unsteady, body still quaking as she clung to me, one hand pressed to her bruised side, as if holding on to her last shred of dignity. I squeezed her hand back, trying to mask the fear gnawing at me. "I'm with you every step. Don't be afraid," I whispered, though my own heart pounded with dread. What if the damage was internal? What if he'd gone too far? Dr. Elena Harlan was waiting at the entrance, her white coat crisp under the fluorescent lights, her expression a mix of professional concern and personal worry as she took in Emily's state. She didn't waste time with greetings, just nodded to a nurse who wheeled over a gurney, gently transferring Emily to an examination room. I followed close behind, my footsteps heavy on the linoleum floor, the familiar scent of antiseptic bringing back a flood of memories from my nursing career. As the nurse carefully removed Emily's light jacket, I had to stifle a gasp. Beyond the facial bruises, her shoulders bore reddish welts, her wrists encircled by fingerprint-like marks in deep purple. Silent testimonies to being grabbed, restrained, hurt. I stood frozen, gripping the edge of a metal table to steady myself, the rage inside me building like a pressure cooker. What kind of monster does this to someone he claims to love? I thought, but I held my tongue, not wanting to upset Emily further, who lay there with eyes squeezed shut, as if wishing it all away. Dr. Harlan examined her methodically, her face grave as she noted each injury in her chart. "We'll need x-rays to check for fractured ribs or internal issues," she said, her voice firm yet compassionate, the kind I'd used on countless patients. I nodded silently, my mind already shifting to the next steps, watching as Emily was wheeled away for imaging, her form small and vulnerable under the harsh lights. While waiting in the sterile hallway, pacing back and forth, I handled the admission paperwork at the front desk, my hands shaking slightly as I signed forms and provided insurance details. My cell phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, an unknown number flashing on the screen. I knew instinctively it was Alex. Who else would call at this hour, right after Emily's escape? Fury boiled over, and I declined the call without a second thought. He didn't deserve even the courtesy of a hang-up. Let him stew in his own paranoia. When I returned to the room, Emily had drifted into a fitful sleep, likely from sheer exhaustion and the pain meds they had administered. I pulled the thin hospital blanket up to her chin, my hands still trembling slightly, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Seeing her this way transported me back to when she was little, running through the sprinkler in the backyard, laughing without a care, calling out, "Grandma, watch this." That innocent joy was gone now, replaced with wounds and shadows, and it broke something deep inside me. I was her protector, had been since the day I took her in, and I'd let this happen under my nose, welcomed Alex into our home, thinking he was stable, reliable. The guilt gnawed at me, but it fueled a burning determination. I wouldn't let her suffer another day. No more. After the x-rays came back, showing no fractures but confirming severe contusions that could have been worse, they hooked her up to an IV for hydration and pain relief, and we were cleared to go home. I made her a mug of warm chamomile tea, laced with honey, just how she liked it, and placed it on the nightstand in the guest room, her old bedroom really, closing the door softly to let her rest. It was nearly dawn now, the first hints of pink light filtering through the curtains, casting a soft glow on the familiar walls adorned with her childhood drawings. I stepped out onto the porch to clear my head and tidy up the scattered leaves from the wind when I spotted my neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, across the street, watering her rose bushes in the early light. She waved, then hurried over, her brow furrowed with concern. "Margaret, is everything all right? I heard knocking and some crying last night. It sounded serious." I sighed, deciding to trust her. She'd been a good friend for years, and briefly explained. Emily had been beaten by her boyfriend Alex, who'd isolated her, controlled her finances, and now she'd fled to me in the night. Mrs. Lopez's eyes flashed with indignation, her grip tightening on her watering can. "That no-good bastard! How dare he lay a hand on that sweet girl? If there's anything I can do, you just say the word." I nodded, grateful for the ally, and then remembered the security camera she'd installed last year after a string of burglaries. "Say, does your camera cover my porch? Could it have caught anything from last night?" She nodded eagerly, pulling out her phone and opening the app to show me the footage. There it was, time-stamped at 1:02 a.m., Emily staggering up my steps, knocking desperately, her muffled cries audible through the microphone, her figure hunched in pain under the porch light. Watching it made my heart ache all over again, reliving the horror, but I quickly recorded the video onto my own phone, knowing it would be crucial evidence.
I took Mrs. Lopez's hand, squeezing it warmly. "Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. This could make all the difference." She patted my arm firmly. "Don't you worry. Get justice for Emily. I know you can. You've always been the strong one around here." Back inside, I headed to my bedroom, opening the closet where my old nursing scrubs hung neatly, a relic from my career. The crisp white top, the comfortable pants, the stethoscope coiled like a snake ready to strike. They weren't just clothes, they were armor, a reminder of my oath to do no harm but to heal and protect. I dressed slowly, deliberately, buttoning each button with purpose, adjusting the fit, feeling the fabric against my skin like a vow renewed. I was no longer just Grandma Margaret. I was the nurse who'd saved lives in chaotic ERs, the woman who'd raised Emily alone, and I would use every skill, every connection to shield her. Once dressed, I picked up the phone and dialed Victor Patel, my longtime family lawyer, who'd handled the estate after my son's accident. His voice was sleepy on the line. "Margaret? Everything okay?" I was concise. No time for pleasantries. "Victor, it's time to start the plan we discussed last year, the emergency protocol for Emily." He paused, then his tone sharpened. "Are you sure? This is serious." Without hesitation, "Absolutely. Get everything ready." I hung up and moved to the living room, pulling my digital camera from the desk drawer, the one I used for family photos, but now for something far graver. Approaching Emily's room quietly, I slipped in, carefully pulling back the blanket to expose the injuries without waking her. I snapped photos methodically, the split lip in close-up, the swollen eye from multiple angles, the sprawling bruise on her abdomen, each flash illuminating the horror and stark detail. It felt clinical, detached, but every click was like capturing pieces of her broken spirit, evidence that would speak when words failed. When done, I sat at the kitchen table, spreading out papers, the USB drive with Mrs. Lopez's video, and my notebook of notes. I plugged in the drive to my laptop, backing up the footage carefully, watching the screen as the file transferred, the progress bar a metaphor for my building case. Sitting there, the morning light strengthening, I knew this was the point of no return. I'd entered a battle not just for Emily, but for every woman I'd treated in the ER with similar stories, sworn to silence by fear. By the time I finished the backup, the clock struck 8 a.m. Emily was still deep in sleep, her face puffy, lips cracked and dry, as if the pain pursued her even in dreams. I tiptoed to the kitchen, chopping onions and carrots for a simple chicken soup, the aroma of herbs and broth filling the air like a comforting embrace. I carried the tray to her bedside and woke her gently, stroking her hair. She opened her good eye, confusion giving way to surprise at seeing me in my scrubs. "Grandma, what?" "Not hungry." I sat on the bed's edge, my voice soft but insistent. "To heal and fight back, you need your strength, dear. Eat a little." She looked at me, eyes misting, and took the spoon reluctantly, swallowing with effort, each bite a small victory. It pained me to see her like this. Just a few years ago, Emily was vibrant, sketching portraits in the sunroom, her laughter echoing through the house. Now she was a shadow, diminished by Alex's control. I decided we needed a follow-up at the clinic. That abdominal bruise worried me deeply. Dr. Harlan welcomed us back, her expression serious as she reviewed the overnight notes. "Let's do a CT scan to rule out any internal bleeding or organ damage," she said, and I agreed, my nurse's knowledge telling me it was prudent. While Emily was in the scanner, I sat in the waiting area, pulling out my laptop to connect the USB again. The video played. 1:02 a.m., Emily at my door, knocking frantically, sobs piercing the night. Reliving it squeezed my heart, but I copied it to a password-protected external drive, meticulous with every step. This wasn't just protection, it was fortification against Alex's lies. Just then, Emily's phone, which I'd kept in my purse, rang shrilly. The screen lit up. Alex. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed it before Emily could hear, powering it off instantly.
She emerged from the scan room, looking terrified at the thought. "Grandma, if he knows I told you, he'll never stop." Her voice quavered, plunging her back into that abyss of fear. I held her hand tight, reassuring. "I'm here, and he won't touch you again." But I said nothing more, glancing at the clock. It was nearing 10 a.m. Discreetly, I removed the SIM card from her phone and inserted a spare one I kept for emergencies, cutting off his tracking. The CT results arrived soon after, severe soft tissue contusions, but no bleeding or tears. Thank heavens. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Physical wounds heal, but the psychological ones, I knew from experience, lingered like ghosts. We headed home, and I called Victor Patel to update him. "I have medical records, neighbor video, solid start," I said. He set an afternoon meeting to compile. Meanwhile, Mrs. Lopez knocked with a pot of homemade pozole. "For Emily, to build her up," she said warmly. "If you need a witness, I'm your woman." Her kindness fortified my resolve, making me feel less alone in this fight. In the afternoon, Emily tried to rest, but nightmares jolted her awake, mumbling about Alex and his associate Tara, who mocked her while he isolated her. "Who is Tara?" I asked gently, though rage simmered. Emily's voice weak. "His mistress. She'd come over, flaunt herself, provoke him to take it out on me, all while he forged documents from my savings account, Grandpa's inheritance money." The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Alex had sat at my table, complimented my cooking, all while plotting to steal from us. I'd thought him ambitious, a good match. Now he was a thief, an abuser. Sitting by her bed, I pulled out my phone and took more close-ups of the wrist bruises, including the timestamp from her watch. Each photo wasn't just documentation, it was a testament to her suffering, fuel for the justice I sought. We drove to Victor's office that afternoon, a modest building downtown, with a folder bulging with evidence. Injury photos, medical report, USB video. He spread it on his desk, nodding approvingly. "This is a strong base, Margaret. To nail him, we need proof of the affair and fraud. That'll leave no escape." I clutched my bag, knowing my next move. I was no longer a grieving grandmother. I was a strategist, drawing on my medical knowledge to build an airtight case. That night, I didn't leave Emily at home where Alex might track her. Instead, I arranged for her to stay with Mrs. Lopez, whose house had extra security and a guest room. Mrs. Lopez welcomed her with open arms, promising vigilance. I returned home alone, the house feeling empty, my heart heavy with worry. I shed the scrubs for an old gray jacket and jeans, aiming to blend in as an ordinary senior, not the avenger I felt like. From the drawer, I took the digital camera, checked its battery and memory, and slipped out to my car, the engine purring softly as I drove into the night. Every streetlight passed reminded me this was a war for Emily's future, for the justice I'd sworn to uphold in my nursing oath. I parked in a shadowed alley near the dive bar on Elm Street, the spot Emily had mentioned Alex frequented with his crowd. The neon sign buzzed, casting a red glow on the pavement. I hunkered down in the front seat, camera ready, waiting like a hunter. Around 8 p.m., Alex's black SUV rolled up, headlights sweeping the area. My heart raced, but I stayed calm, zooming in as he stepped out. Minutes later, a woman sauntered from the shadows, Tara, in a skimpy red top and jeans, lips glossed, cigarette dangling. She approached with sway, and Alex pulled her close, arm around her waist possessively. Seeing that, the man who'd hurt my granddaughter, now parading his betrayal, made my blood boil, but I snapped photos steadily, the bar's light illuminating their faces clearly. Each click was a victory, evidence of infidelity. I tailed them discreetly to a seedy motel on the outskirts, keeping distance, capturing them entering arm in arm, then circled to photograph his license plate with a nearby clock showing the time.
These weren't just pictures, they were ammunition, irrefutable proof he'd have no defense against. Back home, I transferred the photos to a secure folder on my laptop, password protected twice over. I called Victor, voice laced with triumph. "I have the infidelity evidence. Faces, plate, timestamp, all clear." He replied steadily, "Well done, Margaret. Safeguard them. Don't tip him off." I agreed, a sense of progress easing the knot in my chest. Then my phone vibrated, Mrs. Lopez's number, Emily on the line, voice panicked. "Grandma, Alex called my friend, demanding to know where I am. When she said she didn't know, he threatened her too. I am terrified." Hearing her fears shrank my heart. Even in hiding, he haunted her. Stay calm, love. Mrs. Lopez's place is safe, and I have eyes on him. But internally, I knew I had to move faster before he escalated. I reached out to Sergeant Maria Ramirez, my old nursing buddy, now in the police department's Victim Services Unit. I handed over copies of everything: video, medicals, photos. Send patrols to watch the neighborhood, especially Mrs. Lopez's. My voice was steel. She agreed, but cautioned, "This is risky, Margaret, but your evidence is ironclad. You'll prevail." I thanked her, providing duplicates of the infidelity shots for backup. That night, sleep evaded me. I sat at the table organizing files into labeled folders: injuries, surveillance, threats, each one an accusation building toward his downfall. But amid the determination, pain lingered. I'd seen Alex as family, believed he'd cherish Emily. Now his betrayal burned like acid, every thought of her bruises a fresh torment. The next morning I took Emily to Dr. Lydia Voss, a psychologist Victor recommended for trauma recovery. Emily needed tools to rebuild her shattered self. I waited in the lobby, heart heavy as she shuffled in, shoulders slumped. Watching her, I reflected on my own silences in life, times I'd overlooked red flags. The ache was profound, a reminder of my duty. While there, a call from my bank contact, Mr. Jenkins. "Margaret, something odd. Transfers from Emily's savings to an account linked to Alex. Signatures that look forged." I went cold. He stole her inheritance, the fund from her parents. I requested photocopies, racing to the bank. There, the files confirmed, shaky forgeries of our names on withdrawal forms, delivered by Alex himself. Jenkins whispered, "Someone here might have helped him. Be careful." I nodded, pocketing the copies, vowing discretion. Alex wasn't just violent, he was a cunning fraudster. Afternoon, I collected Emily from therapy. She seemed marginally steadier, and headed to Victor's with the new evidence. He examined the papers, fingers drumming. "This fraud charge seals it. No way out for him." Emily, beside me, teared up. "Grandma, he took everything Grandpa left me." Indignant and heartbroken, I held her. "We'll get it back, and more. He'll pay." That night, I delivered the fraud docs to Sergeant Ramirez. "Solid," she said. "He won't slip away." I secured everything in my bedroom safe, the clock ticking toward midnight. Sleepless, I pondered Alex, his crimes against our family. The pain fueled me. No turning back. Saturday morning, I left Emily with Mrs. Lopez, patrols outside for protection. Dressed casually but with the evidence folder in my bag, I drove to Alex's gym, his business front where he lorded over weights and egos. The air reeked of sweat and rubber. His buddies eyed me mockingly. "Look, Granny's here." I ignored, marching to his office. Alex, counting protein shake sales, smirked. "What brings the old nurse?" I slammed the folder down. Bruises, video, medicals, forgeries, affair photos. His face paled briefly, then sneered. "So what? My lawyers will shred this. See you in court," I said icily. He stood, veins bulging. She needed discipline, that mouth of hers. Rage nearly blinded me. He justified her pain? I collected the files. "The law will discipline you now." He shouted threats as I left. Called Victor. File the suit. Days later, rumors swirled. Emily's fabricating. I'm meddling. Whispers at the grocery store stung like bees. Ladies at the produce stand. She probably provoked him. I hurried past, tears pricking, feeling isolated. Victor called. Alex hired a slick lawyer, countersuing for defamation, abuse of connections. The papers accused us of extortion. Emily paled. He's painting me as the villain. I held her, but the town's doubt crushed me. Passing an alley, Alex's pals leered. "Folks believe him over you." I reported to Sergeant Ramirez, who upped patrols. That night, a note under my door. "Shut up or lose the girl." Furious, I added it to evidence. Met Victor late. His dirty tactics backfire. "We need Tara." Found her at a coffee shop. Envelope ready. Forgeries, her debts. I'm Margaret. Stick with him, drown, help us, survive. She laughed nervously, then blanched at the papers. He promised me a cut of the money, but used me. Agreed to testify, if protected. Hid her in a safe apartment via Ramirez. Trial dawned. Made broth for Emily. Dressed her in a simple dress, scarf hiding marks. Head up, dear. Escort to courthouse. Alex smug with lawyer. Victor presented. Photos, reports, video. Sobs filling the room. Counter, lies, coercion. But threats shown. Tara testified. Forged for promises. Betrayed me. Alex yelled betrayal.
I testified. As nurse and grandma, I protect, won't let abuse stand. Verdict: protection order, assets frozen, fraud nullified, charges for violence and fraud. Whispers: Margaret won, justice, Alex arrested, photo in the news, Tara started anew, pals jailed. Emily healed with therapy, sang again, got job. Town apologized. I aided others. The weeks after the trial brought a quiet I hadn't known in months.
Emily moved back in permanently, her room filled with sketchbooks once more. At first, she'd wake screaming from nightmares, clutching her side, whispering his name in terror. I'd rush in, hold her until the tremor subsided, murmuring, "You're safe, my love, he's gone." Therapy with Dr. Voss became our anchor, weekly sessions where Emily unpacked the isolation, the gaslighting, the slow erosion of her confidence. I'd sit in the waiting room, knitting scarves for the clinic's patients, each stitch a prayer for her healing. Slowly, the light returned to her eyes. One evening, I heard humming from the kitchen, Emily folding laundry, singing an old lullaby I'd taught her as a child. Tears welled as I peeked in. Her bruises had faded to faint yellow ghosts, but her voice was pure melody. She caught me watching and smiled shyly. "Grandma, I think I'm ready to apply for that art assistant job downtown." My heart soared. We celebrated with her favorite chocolate cake, the first time she'd laughed freely in ages. The town shifted too. Neighbors who'd whispered doubts now stopped me at the mailbox with apologies. Mrs. Thompson brought pies, saying, "I misjudged, forgive an old fool." Even the grocery ladies nodded respectfully. Mrs. Lopez became family, hosting Sunday dinners where Emily blossomed, sharing stories of her new job. Sergeant Ramirez dropped by with updates. Alex's trial for fraud loomed, his assets liquidated to repay Emily's savings, every cent returned with interest. Tara sent a postcard from her new city. "Clean slate. Thank you." I kept helping others. A young mother at the clinic, eyes downcast with fresh marks, confided after seeing my story in the local paper. I held her hand, shared Emily's journey, connected her to resources. "You're not alone," I said, echoing my promise to Emily. My nursing days weren't over. They evolved into advocacy. On quiet nights, I'd sit on the porch with tea, watching fireflies dance, reflecting on that fateful 1 a.m. knock. The pain lingered, a scar reminding me of fragility, but so did the triumph. Justice wasn't revenge, it was restoration. Emily's sketches now hung in local galleries, her smile radiant. We'd won more than a case. We'd reclaimed our lives. This story is fictional, but draws from real shadows many face. If it resonates, what would you do in my shoes? Stay silent for peace or fight for truth? Drop your thoughts below. Your voice might light someone's path. God bless the brave. Check my channel for more stories that'll grip your heart. Thank you for staying till the end.